Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Beware the Board, a horror podcast where we watch a randomly selected horror movie every single week. I'm Bob.
I'm Ben.
Hey, Ben.
What's up?
Nothing much. How about you?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can't tell by the dichotomy between how loud we are and how energetic we seem, Ben's very tired and I'm ready to go.
Oh, that's gonna be the new usual for this season.
Ben, it's always been the
Maybe
usual.
next season. I don't know. Sometimes I'm not tired.
Sometimes.
But-
Occasionally.
School started up again.
Yeah.
And my
Aren't you taking like a bajillion classes?
Not really, but my schedule's just horrific.
Yeah. Well,
Like-
we work nights, so it's like,
I know. My Tuesday goes from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah, how are you going to do that? What time do you normally start work?
How? I am doing that.
Like, you start work at normally, like, what, 9 or 10?
Yes.
When do you
And
sleep?
I usually have to leave for work at like 8.
Oh, my God. I'm sorry to hear that, Ben.
And I get home at like 4:30. So
You
Don't-
could sleep for a couple hours somewhere
I
in there.
don't really sleep on Tuesday.
That's tragic. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, me too. But
Damn.
you know, we do be doing though.
What are you, Scooby-Doo?
We do. Do.
Oh, my God. You know what? It's okay. This is completely unrelated to your life struggles and everything. We talk about Scooby-Doo so much on the show.
I like Scooby Doo.
No, but I hadn't thought about it until very recently. I've edited a couple of episodes very recently that we just mentioned Scooby-Doo on. Like, I think it was like Pumpkinhead, Mystery of the Wax Museum. Ridiculous.
I don't know
We
about
should
you.
cover Scooby-Doo.
I
We
grew
should
up-
watch the Scooby-Doo movies.
I grew up with a lot of it, especially the late 90s Scooby Doo movies.
Yeah, me too.
From that, I think it's a Korean studio.
Is
But,
it?
like Zombie Island?
Oh, Zombie Island is so good.
What else? There's the one with the Hex Girls,
Yeah, and then there's the one in cyberspace.
Cyber Chase.
Yeah, is it called Cyberchase? I
think
couldn't
it's
remember.
Cyber Chase.
I had the Game Boy Advance.
The Witch's
game.
Curse is the one with the Hex Girls originally, I
Yeah.
believe. Anyways, the ones where it's like actual kid entry to horror.
Mm-hmm. We should totally watch Scooby-Doo for the podcast.
Maybe
I would
eventually.
love that.
We can put on the live action Scooby Doo.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's watch the live action one. I don't know.
But
I mean, it'd be
I
fun.
don't know. That'd be weird, but maybe. Anyways, getting off topic, I think this is the section where we normally do kind of our news.
Yeah, do you have any news, Ben?
Yeah, but do you want to go first?
I have a long list of stuff.
Yeah, why don't you go first?
Okay, we'll start with my stuff. This is semi-relevant to the podcast because A, it's horror news, but B,
It's Bob News, which is always semi-relevant to the podcast.
of course, but also it's relevant to one of our categories this season. Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is a very famous Universal monster film, is getting a comic book series from Robert Kirkman's comic studio, Skybound Entertainment. If you don't know who Robert Kirkman is, he's very famous.
He does stuff.
Yeah, very famous comic writer. He wrote Invincible, which has an Amazon Prime show. He wrote The Walking Dead. He has a bunch of other comics. He has his own studio now, but they're doing a 4-issue limited run of a Creature from Black Lagoon comic. First issue drops April 24th, 2024. So if you're a comic fan and a horror fan, look out for that. It actually, I saw the covers for some of the issues. It looks fucking cool. We've never seen that movie on the podcast.
I mean, the creature's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Like, if we watch that this season, I might pick up the comic when it drops and get all 4 issues because it's pretty rad. Next thing, this is also semi-relevant to the podcast because if you've been here since the beginning, you know our first season we had spiders as one of our first categories.
That was our first movie.
Our first movie was the spider movie, yeah. Eight-Legged Freaks.
Freaks.
And I don't like spiders. I'm deathly afraid of them.
Really?
Yeah. Ben, do you remember that one time we were at my old house? I was going to go out the back door and there was a spider on the door and I stood there for about 15 minutes freaking out because I couldn't go out the door
It was funny.
and I wouldn't squish it because I was too afraid to get near it. That's how deathly afraid of spiders I am, people.
You know what the best part of that was?
You were watching laughing the whole time?
Help you.
No, yeah, I know. I'm still mad about it, actually. To this day, I'm furious. There's a new spider movie.
Is it Spider-Man?
No, it's called Sting. It releases on April 12th, 2024. It's, from what I can tell, a giant spider movie with a huge emphasis on practical spider effects, similar to Arachnophobia.
So it's not like an asylum film?
No, it's like an actual movie. It's directed and written by, I'm going to butcher this name and I'm sorry, Kia Roach Turner. He's also directed Wormwood, Road of the Dead, and Necrotronic. Have you heard of those films? They were like film festival films. I think this is like his first bigger thing.
Not really.
But that's cool, I
That's
guess.
cool, yeah.
If you're into spider stuff. I don't want to do that category ever again.
I don't know if we could do that.
We could. We totally could. We could watch the
Okay.
Arachnophobia remake
We could,
when that comes out.
but it was hard the first time.
Yeah.
And while I've gotten better at, I think, picking movies, I think there would still be some challenges involved because it was smaller as a category.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, I know there are some big ones we didn't touch, is my point. So, you guys didn't see that. Ben, moved his hands like spider legs. I didn't like that. So, a trailer for a movie called Crazy House. This is Crazy House with a K. Okay.
I saw the trailer.
You watched the trailer?
Yeah, it's basically like, I don't know, like a 90s, 80s sitcom kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's spoofed to be a horror movie. It stars, what's his name? He's in all the Sean Penn movies, like
Yep.
Shaun of the Dead and
You mean Simon Pegg?
Simon Pegg, yeah.
I have his name written down.
What's his name?
Nick Frost.
Yeah, Nick Frost. Pretty funny actor.
Yeah, no, those movies are funny.
He looks like he's the main character. It should be a lot of fun.
No, I'm really excited about
it's
it. Yeah.
Film festival movie, I think.
It looks cool. I saw some of the art and I was like, this looks hilarious.
It's very stylized. I think we've talked about this before, but if you like Too Many Cooks, that's kind of the vibe it's giving off.
I've never seen Too Many Cooks.
Oh, I can just put that on later.
I
We'll do a short review.
A short review of Too Many Cooks.
It's like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes long. That's not that
Okay.
long.
Do you know what the movie, Jesus Christ, I can't talk. Do you know what the video game Until Dawn is?
Yeah.
There's a horror movie version of it set to begin production and be directed by David F. Sandberg. Previously directed Lights Out and Annabelle Creation. It's being produced by Screen Gems and PlayStation Productions. If you don't know what Until Dawn is, there's this studio called Supermassive that put out video games, and it's essentially a horror-based sort of story game where you just make choices about characters and what they do in certain moments, and then your choices impact the way the game plays out. That's really what it is. So they're taking that concept and turning it into a horror movie based on the first game they made.
Now, that's the one about the friends in the cabin.
Yes, that
Yeah,
one.
with all the snow and everything.
Mm-hmm. Which that game is phenomenal if you've never played it.
So that's the
I
one
highly
they're basing
recommend
it on?
it. Yes, that is what the basis for the movie is.
Okay, so first of all, I'm always kind of sketchy whenever they adapt video games into movies for two reasons, and I do think they are pretty legitimate reasons. Either A, no matter how good that video game, it has, how should I put this? Parts of the story are based on the video game format that don't translate well to the screen.
Yeah.
That can be an issue sometimes. But also sometimes you have people who aren't fans of that series
Yep.
adapting it, and you can have something that looks like it's inspired by that series but is a bad adaptation. We're talking bad video game movies that came out 2023. Do you know an absolutely horrific one?
Oh, God, I don't know.
Monster Hunter.
Oh, there was a Monster Hunter movie?
Yes.
Had no idea.
Bad? It's bad.
Monsters.
Do you know what the one thing you want in your Monster Hunter movie is? No.
Monster hunting.
Monster hunting, but very specifically, people with ludicrously big weapons smashing the shit out of monsters. You know what you get instead in that movie?
Not that.
Some people with guns.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's dumb.
It's not great. It is by the same guy
That
who did
sucks.
the oh my god, he's married to Mia Jovovich. They do all the
Resident Evil?
Resident Evil films, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Same director.
But what's cool about this Until Dawn thing, and this is the reason I wanted to bring it up, is I'm really curious because that game has multiple endings where either everyone lives, everyone dies, some people survive. Basically, there's tons of choices you make in the game that impact the story itself. So I have absolutely no fucking idea what choices they're going to make.
I don't know. Is there a canon ending
I don't think
for
so.
that game?
I actually don't think there's a canon ending because there are so many different choices you can make that affect what happens.
I know, but most games have the quote unquote canon ending.
Yeah. There might be, but I wouldn't be aware of it. But I mean, I am excited about it because they pulled in PlayStation Productions to work on it, and they worked on the game with Supermassive. So I'm hesitant, but I'm excited.
Oh well, I mean, I'm glad you're excited. I always take video game movies with a grain of salt
No, I mean that's totally fair.
because I mean they can be good movies, but they can still not be
Good adaptations.
good adaptations. I mean, maybe not the best example, but I think it's probably the most popular example for this year. But the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Yeah, I've heard it's good.
I've heard it's good, but I can't imagine it's a good
Of
adaptation.
Mario, absolutely
Yeah.
not. Probably.
Not that you can really adapt Mario, but You know.
Fair. Okay. Last thing, and this is actually like a cool thing that I appreciate. Columbia Pictures is celebrating its 100th anniversary, so for 1 week only, you can get 100 movies for $100.
Oh my God.
Yeah, super cool, and it's all Columbia-based stuff, like production company-wise.
Not from the country of Colombia.
No. Movies for horror fans include Anaconda, Fright Night, Christine, and Wolf, with plenty more movies in the mix. I mean, there are 100 of them. I just named a couple because those were the famous horror ones that I saw off this list. Super dope. That's awesome.
How do you get them though?
You go to the website. If you go to the Columbia website, they'll be like, you can pay $100, you get 100 movies.
Do you have to watch them on the Columbia website though?
I don't know how you watch them. I'm unaware, but
That's cool. I'm just like logistically going.
I clicked the link and went to the website.
If I spent $100, do I have to then have the Columbia website?
Yeah, I don't know.
All
Cool.
right. Cool though.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, super
cool.
dope. Like, you don't see studios doing stuff like that anymore. Like, that's a huge sale on a bunch of films.
Insane. Honestly, I think I'd be more excited about the non-horror films from Columbia.
No, sure. There are so many movies.
A big studio.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's my last thing.
Okay.
What do you got, Ben?
I guess I got stuff. So, I watch a lot of movies.
Yeah.
But I watch a lot of movies for this podcast. And outside of this podcast, I don't necessarily have time to watch a lot of movies, both with like work and everything else going on. And when I do watch horror movies, not on the podcast, I can't really talk about them here.
Yeah.
Except for maybe a quick blurb, especially if it's like a really recent movie. I'll
Mhm.
sometimes talk about it because I think that's more relevant. Less so if it's an old movie. I'm just like, well, maybe we'll watch that. Like I did that a couple episodes ago
Yeah.
where I was like, I watched a good movie. It was scary. Can't tell you anymore. But I watched 2 movies that weren't horror movies this week. So I was
Okay.
like, maybe I can tell Bob about them. So first of all, last night, so starting at midnight, which
Okay.
is relevant, I watched The Great Escape for the first time, which is a World War II movie set in a POW camp.
Okay.
Do you know what POW camp is?
Yes.
Prisoner of War. It's very specifically an officer prisoner of war camp. And the film is all about these guys trying to escape from the camp. Very specifically, they're trying to do a great escape of 250 prisoners at once
Oh my God. That's so many people.
through some ludicrous escape attempt. It's a lot of fun. I thought it was really good. But I will say, it's 3 hours long. It's
What a long movie.
insane because it came out. It came out back in the day when they were like, we're gonna make art and not care about how long it is.
When did this movie come out?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I think it's the 1970s.
Okay. I thought this was an older movie. I've heard of this film.
Yeah.
I didn't
No,
know what it was
it's-
about.
It's really, really good, and yeah, I just had a lot of fun. The whole thing though, with it being so long, is I was watching it with my roommate and we got 2 hours and we paused it to go use the bathroom. We're like, oh my God, there's an hour left.
Jesus Christ.
It also gets to certain points of the film and it's like, wait, they're still going? That being said, highly recommend. But I was watching it and I didn't read the intro credits because I try
Mhm.
not to, so I get surprised by actors. Do you know who was in that film?
Oh God. 70s movie. God. I don't know, Ben.
I mean, first of all, Steve McQueen is in that movie as like a main character.
Okay.
But Donald Pleasance,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah,
Oh, I should have guessed that. Duh.
he's pretty young too.
Oh my God.
Pretty
Young.
funny.
Does he have hair?
No, but
Oh, okay.
he has like black hair on the side of his head,
Okay.
so that was cool.
That is dope.
But the other thing, and this is going to be more relevant, I think, for a little bit, is I'm in a film studies class this semester just for fun because I have to be in non-major specific classes. Kind of sucks, but whatever. And, we watch a movie every week. So this week, we watched a film from 1926
Oh, cool.
from Japan
Yo.
called A Page of Madness. And I'm bringing it up because, A, it's a recovered film, which I always think is really cool.
That is cool.
It was lost until, I believe, 1971
Wow.
when one of the writers found it in, I think, his tool shed.
What a wild place to find an old movie.
It's especially wild because that writer, I believe, is very, very famous now. And, like, when he found the work, he was very, very famous. He was not back in 1926. I think he won a Nobel Prize in the interim.
Oh my God.
For his writing and stuff. But it's a weird film.
Okay.
I mean, it's from a avant-garde movement from like 1920s Japan that didn't like take off.
Hmm.
So it's really weird. It's all in black and white. There's no sound. And there's also no title cards.
Whoa.
So, like, when people talk, there's no, like, cards to tell you what they're saying.
They're just talking.
They're just talking, and you can't hear them because apparently the movie was supposed to be watched with basically, like, a crier guy who would stand next to the screen and explain stuff.
That's cool.
So it's really weird. It's very, again, very avant-garde and, like, ephemeral. In part because, like, 30 minutes are missing. But it's definitely interesting. And if you like older avant-garde films, especially stuff from, like, other countries like Japan, it's kind of cool. It's set in an insane asylum.
I mean, look, the last black and white Japanese movie we watched was fucking crazy. So,
But then again, it's also kind of slow and there's no sound. So it could be very interesting to some people, but I think to a lot of people it's going to be unpleasant. It's
Fair.
also not horror, so, there's that. But that's all I have. And
Okay.
I might bring up what we watched next week, but that's a secondary thing.
okay. That's cool. I would love to do more stuff like that for the podcast, but that does not make good content. Like, a film like that, we couldn't watch Skinamarink on the podcast.
Well, that's just a garbage film.
Have you watched it?
Nope.
It's not garbage.
Garbage.
It's really good. I will say, I'm a scared little man. I'll admit that every time I bring this movie up.
Fall asleep watching Skinamarink. That's what's going to happen.
That movie scared the shit out of me. It might be the most scared I've ever been.
You also watched it towards the beginning of this podcast, so.
It wasn't the beginning, but it was
I know,
close.
but I said towards the beginning.
You're right. But I didn't watch it alone. So I watched it with somebody else.
That doesn't make it better. You watch a bunch of stuff with me and you're still scared.
Yeah, you're right. Fair. You're right. Okay. Now to choose a category for the movie for this episode. You know, Ben, I've never done this.
We're going to watch Catholic movies again?
No.
Oh.
We're not. Sorry. Sorry to burst your bubble, buddy. We're not going to watch a Catholic film. Even though The Omen is fantastic. That movie is still so good.
Are we going to watch a Universal Monster film?
Wrong again, Ben.
I know, but I'm hopeful.
Why are you hopeful?
Because, like, I know you're avoiding Universal Monster films because you're not necessarily grooving on them.
No, I mean, I like them. They're
But
fine.
then we're going to have to finish the season with them.
Calm down. I have a plan for that, Ben.
We have to finish the season with them.
I have a plan. Calm down. I'm not choosing Universal Monster films. We're watching Witches. We're finishing the category.
More like bitches, am I right?
Okay.
I had to do the joke the last time.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm almost positive you didn't, but that's fine.
Now we're clear. We're in the clear. I've done it.
Yeah, so I'm choosing the last spot in Witches because that category has been fantastic.
Has it been?
Yeah.
It's been okay.
Wow. Some people have bad opinions, and that is one of them.
It's okay, Bob. I forgive you.
Fuck you.
Oh, you were being serious?
Yeah, we're watching the last movie in Witches. What are you doing?
I don't know. I'm just kind of chilling.
Jesus Christ.
All right. We're going to be watching The Witch today.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That movie's called The Witch.
It's
I
called
hadn't
The
thought
Witch.
about
I
it.
can't believe you didn't think about that.
Okay, cool.
Because you knew I liked this film.
Yeah, but I thought you were going to save it.
For what?
Well, there's...
The film called The Witch. What was I going to save it for, Bob?
Well, Ben, we talked about not watching this movie till we'd done another thing that we've sort of started doing but haven't finished.
See, we sort of started it. Anyways, we're watching The Witch.
Okay. I'm excited about this one. I know this movie is good and that you like it. And normally if you like a movie, it means I'll like a movie.
In this case, I'm not necessarily sure if that's true. I'm sure you will, but
Okay. Interesting.
it's very stylized,
Okay.
so keep that in mind. With that being said, The Witch came out in 2015.
Okay.
It's also sometimes known as The Vidge.
Yeah.
It's not, but like they spell it with 2 V's on a
Mhm.
lot of stuff. It's stylized. But description: 1600s New England and witchcraft. What could go wrong?
Incredible. This is the movie I wanted from this category. I've been
Those-
waiting on this one.
Those things have never mixed poorly in the past.
Nice. This is probably
Salem who?
This is probably the quintessential witch film in my mind. You know what I mean? Like this setup. This is like what I want from the category. The other ones we've watched have not been that at all.
I mean, what do you know about this film?
Nothing.
Just this.
Just what you just said to me.
Okay. Yeah.
That and there's a sheep. Or no, it's a goat.
It's a goat.
Black Phillip?
His
Is
name's
that his
Black
name?
Phillip.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that guy.
he's
I know he's in
rad.
this.
I got some Black Phillip art.
Nice.
Anyways, it's an hour and 32 minutes long,
Okay, no, I expected this to be long as balls.
and it's rated R.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's much shorter than you think. I mean, going back to your quintessential witch film, do you prefer this to like Hocus Pocus?
I haven't seen Hocus Pocus in years. So we'll see.
Okay. Anyways, review scores. 7.0 out of 10 on IMDb.
Okay.
Tomato meter, 90%.
Fuck yeah.
And an audience score of 60%.
Oh.
So you can tell that difference there, right?
Okay.
Like I said, it's very much kind of an artsy film.
Mm.
Like, it's not avant-garde or anything, but it's very, very stylized. And if you can't get behind the style of this film, you're not going to enjoy it.
Fair.
Kind of like Shakespeare stuff,
Okay.
where it's stylized. Well, stylized because it's old. But
Yeah.
if you can't get behind, the writing style,
Mm-hmm.
what is that, Elizabethan?
You're making me rack my fucking mind.
We'll say the Shakespearean writing style.
Yeah.
It's hard to listen to.
I have not taken a
if you don't
Shakespeare
know
class in years.
anything about The Witch, it's all in period accurate English,
Mm-hmm.
which is a little hard
For
I
some
think,
people.
For some people. Anyways, for awards, this is why, very specifically, I don't write these down anymore. I just want you to know that.
God.
45 wins and 70 nominations.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I knew this movie was good and famous. I did not know it was like that many awards famous.
Yeah, a lot of people consider it like the best horror film of the 2010s.
Fuck.
It's really good. Notable actors, Anya Taylor-Joy as Thomasin.
Who is that?
Well, we actually brought this up earlier. She's the voice of Princess Peach in the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Oh, okay. Well, there's that. That one. That's not why I know her, but
No, you'll probably know her from other stuff. She's just very identifiable.
Okay.
Ralph Ineson, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Ineson, as William. He was Green Knight in The Green Knight.
I haven't seen
Have
that.
you ever seen The Green Knight?
No, I
Have you
haven't.
read The Green Knight?
No.
Great Arthurian story.
Mm-hmm. Heard good things.
It's pretty good. The ending, though, I will say, of Green Knight the movie is probably the best part. Kate Dickie as Catherine. She played Ford in Prometheus. She was also the queen in The Green Knight.
Oh, okay.
Harvey Scrimshaw as Caleb. He played Harvard in the School for Good and Evil. Ellie Granger as Mercy. She played Mary Middleton from The Village. She was on 2 episodes between 2013 and 2014. Lucas Dawson as Jonas. He wasn't in anything else. And then finally, probably the most famous actor for this podcast, Julian Richings. Do you know that name, Bob?
Didn't he come up on an episode like super recently?
He comes up all the time. All the time.
Janitor.
Yes, he's the janitor. The weird janitor.
Yep.
And urban legend.
Why is he around so much? He's everywhere.
He's got a very particular look to him.
Yeah,
So he's a fun character actor, I think, for a
No.
lot of
he is.
films.
What if we watched him on something really recently? Do you remember what it was?
Off the top of my head, no.
No, it wasn't The Craft, was it? I feel like it was this season.
I don't think so.
Am I losing my mind? I might be losing
I
my
don't know.
mind.
He's in The Craft. He's in
You
Supernatural.
just said no.
No, is he in The Craft? I could check.
I don't
That'd
remember.
be an
That's why
easy
I'm
thing to
asking.
check. I don't think he's in The Craft, though.
He was in something very recently
He wasn't in The Craft.
because we mentioned his name.
He was in Supernatural. He's
Yeah.
in Urban Legend. He's
Mhm.
in...
There was something
Cube.
else. We haven't seen Cube yet.
We've seen him a couple times on
Yeah.
this show.
I've enjoyed him every time.
Anyways, writer and director is Robert... I think it's, Eggers or Eggers?
I don't know, Ben.
I'm going to say Eggers.
Okay.
That's probably wrong, and I'm sorry. But he also directed The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
Anyone's familiar with that? And
Which
we talked
I-
about him doing the Nosferatu film
Mhm.
a little while ago.
And what? The Northman?
Yeah, he does a bunch of stuff. It's all pretty good,
Mhm.
honestly. If you like his style, you like his style. You haven't seen anything by him, right?
Nope.
This will be the first. Budget is estimated at around $4 million,
That's not as much as I expected.
which is not a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Holy
for
shit.
a film like this, it's a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
not that much in the grand scheme of things. With that being said, the box office turnout was about $40.4 million.
Holy fuck.
So a little over 10 times, which is incredible.
That's crazy.
Because this was a small film when
Mhm.
it came out.
Yeah,
And
I
it
don't remember
did.
seeing ads for it anywhere.
No, it just did great.
I just remember hearing about it after the fact 'cause people were going, "Oh my god, this movie's awesome."
Yep. Country of origin, United States and Canada.
Okay.
It's shot in Canada, if you're wondering. It's originally, like, the full title is technically The Witch with the double V's, A New England Folktale.
Okay.
That's the full title. And the tagline is Evil Takes Many Forms. It's like tiny script under that.
Okay. Oh no.
Many forms.
Nope.
I don't have too much to talk about with this film, though. But I think the big things to note is this is the feature directorial debut of Robert Eggers.
Well, was this his first like feature-length film?
Yes.
Whoa.
It's also the film debut of Anya Taylor-Joy.
Oh, it's her first movie
So
too.
she's a pretty big actor now,
Yeah.
especially in the horror community.
I know she's in other stuff.
She was in Split, if you know that film.
Yes.
Okay.
I do know that film.
She's the girl.
Okay.
There you go. Aside from that, this film was inspired by Eggers' childhood. He grew up in New Hampshire, so New England, and he heard a lot about witches and stuff like that. So, childhood fascination. Next thing, this film is intended to be as historically accurate as they could get it.
See, that's sick.
They talked to a bunch of historians and stuff like that, and they even called in professionals to do some of the set design, like thatching and stuff.
Oh.
And so they do a really good job with everything from dialogue to clothing and even the set. From what I could find, though, the biggest challenge was actually the environment they were filming in. The director wanted to film in New England for obvious reasons,
Yeah,
but
makes
there's
sense.
no tax incentives to do that.
I see.
And so they had to film in Canada, and it was a very big challenge for him to find a area, so like a forested area especially, that looked correct.
Okay.
And so he had to apparently go like really, really off the map to find places that fit what he was looking for, which he did find eventually. But it's kind of interesting that was the biggest challenge.
It's a lot of effort to find look.
I mean, it's his first film. He's got to try hard.
I mean, I guess, but I
Because
guess
you got one shot, one opportunity.
my point is
There's vomit on your sweater already.
mom's spaghetti?
Yeah.
Okay. My point is to put that much effort forward into finding the correct filming location is kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Unnecessary to a lot of people, but the fact that he was willing to do that for his first movie is commendable.
I guess you say that, but you have to remember directors tend to be particular.
I
and
mean, that's
have
fair.
specific images in their head. But you also have to remember he grew up in New England,
Mm-hmm.
so what it's supposed to look like is probably really ingrained in his brain.
Yeah.
And if he probably films anywhere else, it's probably going to take him out of the scene because he's going to be like, this doesn't look right.
Fair.
So it was probably, honestly, a pretty anal thing for him where he was like, I can't film in the wrong place.
That tree, not the right color.
Exactly. Well, you also have to remember when you're filming in Canada, it's a lot colder there.
Mm-hmm.
Not that, northeastern United States isn't very cold. It's very similar environments to Canada in some places, but depending where you are in Canada, it's a very different, tree population and everything. Last thing, though, is with the stylized spelling, the double V's instead of a W. That is apparently from a Jacobean-era pamphlet on witches.
That's cool.
That the director found. Among other things, that's just where the stylized spelling comes
Yeah, I
from.
had no idea where that came from. I just assumed it was like an old witch thing.
I mean, double V, it kind of looks like a W.
I mean, yeah, it does.
So. Anyways, that's all I got, so we can watch the film now.
Okay, yeah. We'll be back in a minute. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We just finished watching The Witch.
Yeah.
Woo!
What do you think?
Okay. I like it. I liked it overall, right?
Hey.
It's pretty good. I have an issue with it, but we'll get to it.
All right, that's fair. With that being said, usual stick, we'll do a brief rundown of kind of the film, and then we'll actually get into talking about it. I don't know if we'll have a spoiler section today.
I don't think we need one.
Probably not.
Because I don't think we should talk about it.
But that means we won't mention, the ending of this film.
Yeah.
Go figure. With that being said, though, I'd highly recommend you go and watch this film. Kind of the biggest takeaway here is that this film is overall an experience. Like, it's all about watching it.
Yeah.
So if we spoil stuff for you, well, you can still, I think, get a lot of enjoyment out of it. It's going to be better as a watch without that. So with that being said, brief description here. It's about a puritanical family. They live in New England in the 1630s, I believe.
Oh.
And they are expelled from the community. It's done very early on in the film. Like, it's the cold open, they get expelled. And it really comes down to the father is in a disagreement with the council in charge of the settlement. And it's really a disagreement of pride where he is attacking the people in charge for not being probably strict enough religiously.
Yeah. That's what it seems like, at least.
And the council's like, dude, calm down.
Chill out.
Or we're going to have to kick you out. And he's like, well, I'll leave. I don't want to be surrounded by you sinners. And so the dad of the family takes his wife and his, 4 children with him because the wife is pregnant.
Is it 5?
The wife is pregnant, I think, when they leave.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Okay.
I might be incorrect, but anyways, the family moves out into the middle of nowhere. I think it's a day's ride away by horse.
I think that's what they said, yeah.
And they set up a small farm kind of in the middle of nowhere. And the main brunt of the film is it's late fall, I think their first year, and things aren't going well. And if you couldn't guess from the title, there might be a supernatural reason underlining the general issues of trying to survive in the wilderness as a small family. So that's, I think, an overall a pretty decent rundown.
Yeah.
So we can get into actually discussing the film. Spoiler warning, of course. Once again, highly recommend you go watch it. Because some of the early scenes that are the inciting incidents are kind of shocking.
Startling.
If you don't
in
expect
fact.
them to happen. But with that being said, let's get into it. Do you have anywhere you want to start with, Bob?
No, you can go first. You can start.
Okay. Right off the bat, and we kind of discussed this earlier, but the thing I think most people are going to notice about this film is the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, my understanding is it's done after, I think it's Jacobean era dialogue, stuff from the 1600s, essentially, for what you'd expect from, like, Puritans, from New England. And I think when most people hear that, they're expecting it to be hard to understand.
It's not.
But it's not.
It's not
And
at all.
I just wanted to start by saying that if you're considering watching this film and one of your big concerns is how hard it's going to be to understand the dialogue or what the characters are talking about, I don't think that's an issue.
No.
The dialogue they use and the word choice they use is very similar to how I think a lot of TV shows imagine antiquated English to sound.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's very approachable for a modern audience.
No, I can agree with
Even
that.
though it's fairly accurate. I think there's a couple allusions to especially biblical texts that might be a little bit harder for people.
Yeah.
But overall, it's very easy to understand what they're saying, and I think it works really well.
No, I like
with
it.
the film.
I like it a lot. It's not my favorite part of the film, but it's one of my favorite parts because it makes all of the different interactions between the characters hit really hard because of the way they talk. And
Yeah.
it gives it impact and oomph that I don't think it would have. Like, if they just looked the way they did and talked normally and had normal dialogue, this film would not work.
No, it's a very important part to making the whole setting of this film work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it jives perfectly with the setting, which I think I mentioned this. They do like period accurate housing,
Mm-hmm.
like the roofs are all thatched and stuff. They have period accurate clothes, not a lot of buttons, some class, lots of ties, and kind of period accurate farming too. They talk to some agricultural specialists, and it all just seems very, very convincing. And it makes a lot of the emotions people are feeling and the reasons they're feeling stuff, I think, hit home in a way it wouldn't otherwise. You said that the dialogue wasn't your favorite choice, but it works really well with the setting. And a note I want to make on that point is that some of the dialogue hits very hard from an emotional aspect, I think, because you have characters going through very emotional sequences using like what you'd expect for them to use for like religious references and stuff to express themselves. And I think it's very impactful.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I think the next thing to look at is some of the cinematography.
This movie's pretty.
It is so pretty. I know we talk about films a lot and we're like, yeah, it's beautiful. But this film does a very good job of capturing nature.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shots where, while someone is in center frame, they are very, very small. And there's a greater focus on the surroundings, which in this case, there's a heavy focus on the woods. It's kind of the malignant force in this movie, more so than even the quote-unquote witch, which is not necessarily a big focus in this movie. Instead, it's
which is surprising.
The woods. And this is actually emphasized at the very end of the cold open, where there's just a sequence of just focusing on the woods and how they tower over the family. But in either case, yeah, there's just a lot of pretty sequences. There's one sequence where we can see the houses that they live in, and the wood backdrop, and just the smoke coming off the chimneys mixing into the fog.
It looks great.
Looks really pretty. But one of the best sequences that I think we see a lot of is when they go into the woods.
Yeah.
And the forest that surrounds this homestead where the family lives is a pine forest, looks like. So if you've ever been to kind of pine forest or seen the Pine Barrens in like
New Jersey
or Maryland, you know, where Blair Witch is set.
Oh, I was going to say where the Jersey Devil lives.
That too. But Blair Witch is set in the Pine Barrens.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Anyways, lots of very, very straight trees, and there's no branches until you get to the top. And so there's a couple sequences where they're moving through the woods, and it creates this really, really interesting effect where you have all the trees almost blending together.
Yeah.
Because it's a bunch of, like, straight lines with none of the background, like, popping through. Anyways, really, very good cinematography, and you can tell that the director did really, really good work with it.
No, my favorite part about the cinematography is a lot of the framing stuff, because it allows us to, as an audience, to view the characters as small as they actually are, in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, by giving us these huge framing shots of the woods and all the surrounding forest, it makes the characters feel small and isolated and alone, which adds to the atmosphere of the film, because a lot of the film is them being like, well, there's crazy stuff happening that we can't explain, but we can't go get any help because it's a days away.
Yeah, the film really, I think, emphasizes what would have been a pretty big reality of life, I think, for people during that time period of, we don't have a lot of control over what happens to us. You couldn't tell from my description earlier, the farm is essentially failing.
Yeah.
You know, these people are Puritans, but they are essentially fresh off the boat from England. At the very least, the two eldest children we know were born in England.
Yeah.
And the eldest son, his name's Caleb, was at least old enough to remember.
At least a little bit.
At least a little bit. Not with the same accuracy that the eldest daughter, Thomasin, is able to, but enough to remember stuff that happened there. So they can't have been in America too long. And so they're very unequipped to handle the realities of living in the new world. And like Bob said, it really does show through, you know, the cinematography, but just generally how they respond to a lot of the bad stuff happening. They kind of try the bunker down, but it just really gets to them. And it very much is a common theme throughout of, oh, all this bad stuff is happening. What do we do? I don't know.
It's very like Cabin Fever-esque. Like, they're stuck. They're alone. There's nothing they really can do.
In part because, as we said, the dad left the village because of pride, and he can't go back.
Because then he looks like a fool.
Both because of his own pride and because of, you know, he kind of insulted everyone before he left.
Yeah.
Moving on, though, from cinematography, the next, I think, big thing to note is sound.
Oh, the music is so good.
The music in this film it's really, really good. It really matches, I think, the tone of this movie and does so much for the film. But it's admittedly a little bit weird.
No, it is weird.
I don't know. I describe it as almost dramatic strings with choral music.
Yeah, there's like So with a film like this, I kind of expected it to be something
Period.
period, because the rest of it is so period, but the fact that the music is not is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Like, I like it.
In fact, I'd say most of the tension from this film, most of the horror comes from the combination of the cinematography, like we
Mhm.
said, focusing on how small the characters are, but combining that with the score.
Because the music is so big and grand and epic, and the
Yeah.
characters are so small that there's just such a like harsh dichotomy that it works.
Going back, I described kind of the first sequence where we see the forest and it's towering over the family and they
Mhm.
focus on it. They play the score during that for, I think, the first time.
Yeah.
And we finished the sequence and Bob was like, I don't know why, but I'm terrified.
Yeah, I was freaked out because it's like the feeling of being alone in a place like that is so wild, untamed, and dangerous is horrific.
Yeah.
And the music emphasizes that.
Aside from that, do you have any other kind of comments on kind of stuff from a production aspect?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to share those?
There's some weird stuff in this movie that I don't know if I like or not, and maybe it's just me. But the movie has very intentional breaks where it'll just straight cut to black at the end of a scene, and it'll hold for like a solid 3 or 4 seconds. It does
Yeah.
it multiple times throughout the film. I don't know if I like it, but it's cool.
Yeah. So my understanding for why that's done, obviously it's a stylistic choice.
Yeah.
But it has to do with how slow this film is.
Mm-hmm.
When those cuts happen, it's because there is a major break both in time but in tone of the sequence.
Yeah.
And the break acts as I think a slower way to kind of keep you in the film and
Yeah.
adjust you to this change
Well, it also
without
helps.
like ripping you out of the moment.
Mm-hmm. It also just helps build tension
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, black screen jump scare. No,
No.
scary though.
I like it. It honestly, to me, reminds me of, again, I'm going to bring this back to kind of what the full title of this is. It's a New England folktale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And fading to black as they do kind of reminds me of reading a book when you finish a chapter
Mm.
and then you have that
Interesting.
blank page and then you turn the page and it's a new scene. That's what it reminds me of
Yeah.
because it's really, they only use it every once in a while at essentially the end of an act.
Mm-hmm.
If this was a play, these black sequences happen at the end of an act.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think it's a more stylistic way of doing an act change
Mm-hmm.
because it feels like where a title card would be for like Act 2 or Act 3.
It almost feels like if I were watching a TV show and it was like, that's the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Cut to black. Commercial. Come back for the next episode.
Yeah. Point being is I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. It was just surprising.
Yeah, I think it can be surprising, but it's one of those things that I think really works with this film.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely wouldn't work for every film, but this film is so segmented into acts.
I was about to say it's structured
Yeah.
and very.
Because things flow naturally over
Yeah.
a long period of time, and then it's like, oh, but now we're jumping.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Now, aside from kind of just general stylistic stuff that we've covered a little bit here, I think for me, the biggest part of this movie that I think is interesting is some of the cultural and historical stuff, at least that I pick up on. I'm not a big history buff, especially for 1600s New England. That's not
Mhm.
something I'm insanely familiar with, but I do think it's interesting to look at some of the cultural stuff I picked up on
Mm-hmm.
because I think there's a lot of undertones in this film. First and foremost, we talk about why the family had to leave the Puritan settlement, and I think that's really fascinating because you know the Puritans, they left England because at the end of the day, the English didn't like them because they were very, very strict from a religious aspect. And so the fact that the father got kicked out for probably being too strict for the Puritans
It's a bit crazy.
it says a lot, but it's also something that's very easy to overlook if you're not aware of that fact.
Yeah.
It's also very interesting to look at how he views religion and pride
Yeah.
because throughout the film, he's generally speaking surprisingly reasonable,
He is a very reasonable father.
but you can also see a lot of hypocrisy coming from him and how like he's ruled by certain things. You can tell he thinks he's above.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, pride's a very good example. He's got his family stuck in the middle of nowhere because of his pride.
Yeah.
And he continues to live there because of his pride, even though it's
Not the best situation.
Not best situation. Other things like that, like, I mean, all the characters have a very, very interesting relationship with religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's
all of their relationships are very different, which I was
Mhm.
surprised by. And I think that's part of my one of my favorite parts, at least, of the film is watching all of these different characters struggle with religion in very different ways, which is not something I kind of expected it coming in because which film from about the 1600s, religion is important in the period.
well,
so it makes
especially for
sense.
the Puritans.
Yeah, so it makes sense for it to be a major part, but it's a ton of this film is not even just undertones, but purely religious dissection.
Yep.
Entire scenes where it's just the dad and Caleb or somebody talking about religion, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, I honestly think it's really interesting how well this film captures how people from that time period would have interacted with it,
Mm-hmm.
because it was just a facet of life. Like, once again, we talked about how the characters don't have a lot of agency, and for them, religion was kind of that agency, at least in some ways that they could capture. And I think the film does a really good job of dealing with how scary that could be. Very early on in the film, I think it's a very good example that Caleb has a freak out about, if I die, what's going to happen to me?
Mm-hmm.
Because, we live out here in the woods. I can't go to a priest.
Yep.
If I've sinned, I'll be damned. It's just, I think it does a very good job of capturing all those very intricate interactions and everyone's differences with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very, very good.
Yeah, and I appreciate it so much because I feel like in a film like this, a lot of the time, all of their feelings about religion will kind of feel the same. Because, they're all raised in the same time, in the same period, it'd be oh, they all have the same views about religion, but it really, really captures the dichotomy between everyone, which makes all of their interactions feel so weighted and real, and really adds a lot to each individual character and gives them really good characterization about why they interact with certain things certain ways. It adds a lot of depth to the film that I really like.
Yeah. However, I think the biggest thing that I picked up on, and I'm not sure if you picked up on it as much, is some of the historical beliefs about witches
Mm-hmm.
spread throughout the film, and I thought that is just the coolest part.
No,
of
it's
this
super
film.
dope.
This film, again, it titles itself after a New England folk tale, but it really does look into beliefs about witches in the classical sense.
Yeah.
I say classical in the 1600 sense.
Mhm.
How the early American colonists would have seen them.
Yeah,
and
it's a
viewed
very
them.
different take from modern witchcraft.
Yeah, very different than modern. And so a lot of the interactions are framed around that. And if you
Mhm.
aren't familiar with ideas about witchcraft in that sense, I don't think everything is easy to pick up on,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't always a bad thing. There's a very specific thing that I think slips under the radar for most people for a modern age, if you're unfamiliar. Very specifically, and again, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but on the farm, like I said, there's 5 kids. There's a
Mhm.
baby, 2 twins, who
Caleb.
are Jason and Mercy. Sam's the baby.
Jonas.
No, Jonas and Mercy.
I was like,
I'm sorry. Yeah. Jonas and Mercy, Caleb, who's the oldest son, and then Thomason. And throughout the film, let me just say the twins are spoiled.
The twins are fucking menaces.
They're allowed to get away with a lot, but very early on in the film, we hear the twins say oh, I was talking to Black Phillip,
Yeah.
the goat. And I think as a modern audience, we hear that and we go, oh, whatever, it's a kid. He's playing pretend.
Yeah, they're fucking around with a goat.
And that's not necessarily the read that you should have
Yeah.
if you were from this time period.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's something most people realize until later in the film when Thomason points it out. I don't think you picked up on it until I
mean, I was vaguely aware, but I hadn't thought about it.
yeah. But talking to animals is a pretty demonic thing to do back in the day. In a similar sequence, we see the kids try to pray at one point, the twins,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't do it,
Yeah, specifically the Lord's Prayer.
which is, again, that's a very oh, I've been doing witchcraft kind of thing. I can't say the Lord's Prayer. There's other similar stuff like how the witch acts. The rituals are not magic in the hocus pocus kind of way that we're used to nowadays. They're much more
Gross.
ritualistic and focused on blood.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly than that, the effects are very much more forces of nature.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that, as an audience, we believe is probably witchcraft almost seems like it could be happenstance.
Mm-hmm.
Like the animals getting sick, an egg having a chick in it,
Yeah.
lots of stuff like
Just
that.
stuff going poorly. The crops like rotting and like dying.
Yep, and the more you learn about the witch as the film goes on, and again, we're not going to talk about the ending here, but the more aspects of kind of classical witchcraft kind of come in to play.
But that adds a large layer of tension within the family too, because it's like the dad's like, I don't want to go back to town, but the mom's like, this sucks.
The mom is like,
The mom's
I
like,
didn't want to leave England.
I didn't want to leave England. This is all horrible. This is all your fault. Blah, 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 blah. And there's no one to blame besides themselves. So it leads to a lot of really awesome interactions where they're fighting with each other over stuff that is not in their control that we as the audience know, but they do not. And
Yeah.
it's really entertaining to watch.
Which I think is a very good lead in to the fact that at the end of the day, this is essentially a character piece
Yeah.
focusing on a family and the stresses that a family can be put under and what effects that can have on them,
Mm-hmm.
especially grief.
Man.
And out of all the family members, it is specifically a focus on Thomason and how grief can negatively and probably wrongly affect certain members of a family unit
Yeah.
and the effects that can have on them over time. And I think it's done beautifully.
No, it's really good. At one point, I looked at Ben. I don't know if it's in the outtakes. I don't know if it's going to be, at least. I looked at Ben and said, this movie sucks. Not because it's a bad movie, but because it's so just like heartbreakingly awful.
Oh, it's brutal because you
it's like
see
heart shattering.
you see everything going wrong before it happens.
Yep.
Like you start this film with the family getting kicked out of town, and I at least know for me the first time I watched it, I saw that sequence and I was like, oh, I know exactly where this is going. And as it keeps progressing, I'm like, yep,
Things are good. It's getting
this
worse.
is exactly what
It's
I thought
getting
would
wor-
happen.
And just when you think it can't get any worse, it gets even worse.
Yeah. With that being said, is there anything else you'd like to talk about particular?
No, I don't think so, man.
Okay, well then I guess before we move on, I just want to mention it. There's a goat in this film.
Oh, yeah, we talked about,
His name's Black Phillip.
good old Black Phillip.
He is I forget the breed name, but he's a historical breed,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that's called, a heritage breed, I think. But he looks like a kind of a period accurate goat.
Yeah.
He's huge.
He's big. He's a big
is
man.
At his haunches, I don't know, 4 feet at least
More than that.
at his haunches.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant on his hind, like if he's standing on his hind
No,
legs.
on his haunches is, if anyone doesn't know, like at his shoulders. So when he's
Yeah,
on
I
all
would say probably
fours.
4 or 5 feet, 4.5 feet, something
Yeah,
like that.
so he's
He's
about
big.
the size of the two twins.
He's taller than the twins.
Not his head, his horns. He has these huge, like, ram horns that curve. Like, the classic devil horns.
Yeah.
And first of all, from what I've heard, in real life, the goat that played Black Phillip was an asshole. Like, super aggressive and would try to kill everyone.
I'm
but-
surprised they got the scenes out of him that they did then.
Oh, yeah, it's very surprising. But Black Phillip as a character of a goat is super rad.
No, he's great.
I just wanted to mention that. He's also super scary because we see a couple sequences where that goat stands on its hind legs. And I know that might not sound like very intimidating, but this is a big animal. It's on its hind legs about 6 feet
I was
tall.
about to say he's huge.
Its horns are about the size of someone's head.
Yeah. At one point, William wrestles the goat.
And it really emphasizes the fact that, oh yeah, this is the 1600s. This might be a goat, but
It'll fuck you up.
a goat can, like, mess you up, let alone everything else in these woods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's also a rabbit,
Yeah.
which
There's a rabbit.
I want to mention here. Again, sort of a spoiler. Generally believe there's some lore of, like, witches either having familiars or being able to change into animals.
Crows specifically, too.
Crows specifically, black cats,
Wolves.
obviously wolves. And there's a couple focus scenes on different animals in this film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes implied that maybe they're witches,
Or maybe it's just,
the devil.
yeah,
But in either case, there's some evil animals.
very evil.
I think that's an important thing to mention because they're all really cool.
Yeah.
They focus a lot on the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you noticed, a lot of the eye colors are the same.
Yeah.
The kind of
I did notice that because at one point there's you get to see the rabbit, but then you see a crow, and I went, my God,
yeah.
same thing.
So it's really, really cool. A lot of attention to detail there. With that being said, if we're not going to talk about the ending, which I do want to say, I think the ending of this film
I wanted to bring this out there. Ending's great.
I love it.
I like the end of this movie.
I think it's a great ending. It's also, at least for me, besides being very, very cool, almost very somber because
It's thematic too.
it's thematic, but it's very much a, like I said, this is a character piece, and it's an ending that's created by characters having no other options, you know, being forced down this path. Again,
No, yeah.
like I said, you can see it kind of coming from the very beginning.
Oh, for sure.
And so the
But I
fact
mean,
that it happens is horrific and sad in the worst way possible.
like, that's the best part.
But that's the best part.
Yeah, well, that's the best part because, like, the fact that we can see it coming means when it gets there, it's satisfying
It's very earned.
in the best way. Like, it's not one of those movies where you see something coming so then it doesn't hit as hard. You see it coming and then you go, oh my God, I can't believe we made it here.
Yeah. Also,
It's awesome.
it has one of my favorite lines in this film. Not going to say it again because it's in the ending and I don't
Yeah.
want to spoil it for
No
anyone.
spoilers here.
But it is one of my favorite lines, both in this movie, but in general, I think for film.
It's a good line.
It sends shivers down my spine because of the context, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's great.
Especially because in context it seems a little bit weird, but it's worked into the values of the time period.
Yeah, for sure.
But with that being said, if you don't have anything else,
Well,
of
got
course.
I've got more now. Sorry, you started talking and then I thought of something else I want to talk about. We haven't talked about it. And this is one of those films where I don't know if this would have helped. But this is not a very bloody or gross film.
No, but
But what you do get is great.
what I was going to say is it's not very bloody, but it feels very realistic.
Yes. It's very like grimy and gross.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of blood, but I don't know if you noticed, but when characters bleed,
Oh.
the wounds stay on them.
And they like leak.
And also, whenever blood gets on their clothes, that stays.
Yeah.
Same thing with dirt. So everything feels very impactful. And again, like I said, we were talking about Black Phillip and how if you get any wound, you might die. You feel like that even for the smallest wounds that
Yeah.
characters get, where it's like, oh, you got a little cut. I hope you don't die from that.
Yeah. I just want to bring that up because, like, at least in my mind, I kind of expected it to be grosser for some reason. But
I don't know. There's some sequences that are pretty
there
gross.
is one specific sequence that's really fucking disgusting.
And Bob thought something was going to happen on screen
Yeah.
that he might have had me turn the film off for.
Yeah. But I just thought I'd bring up, like, the practical stuff that we do get to see for blood and, like, dead animals and stuff looks good. It's just...
I had forgotten about the dead animals. The dead animals look amazing.
Yeah. There's one specific one that you think... you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, warning if you don't like animals dying. They're not real animals.
Of course, they're not real animals.
But
different category.
I know certain types of animals dying on screen kind of ruins movies for
Let me
some
put it
people.
out there. I didn't like it. But one more thing. I also have something else. I'm sorry. So, look,
You're good. I just wish you would, do them earlier instead of me going, oh, let's do the recommendations, and you going, hold up.
Well, because you said, do I have anything else? I said no. And then you said something and it jogged my memory.
Go ahead.
You know, we've talked about how this is like a character piece and like all the characters are really good. There's one standout character for me that I want to talk about specifically because I think he does the best job.
Talking about the dad.
Yes. The guy who plays William, I don't remember his name, is phenomenal. He does such an incredible job. He's by far my favorite character and also the best character. Because there are some, like, you know, Thomasin is the main character, even though the film's really about her whole family overarching and, like, you know, all their values and such. But the way, first of all, his voice is incredible. His voice is like...
I mean, he has just a very deep baritone.
But it like, with the accent and the way he speaks, it just hits me really hard. Like, there's something... The opening sequence, when it's, like, black and he's just talking, is, like, the hardest I've ever, like, been hit by a voice in a film.
He has a very powerful voice. I
Yeah,
think it's the
and
best
it's
way.
really good because it makes everything he says have this sort of
Grandeur.
grandeur and fatherly weight to it. I don't know. I just think he does a phenomenal job, and he's by far my favorite character.
I don't know. I thought all the actors were really good.
All of them were really good.
Especially, shockingly, Thomasin and Caleb are younger, and both their actors did a really good job.
Yeah, for sure.
And the mom is just in grief the whole time.
Oh my God.
And does a very great job of showing that.
Yeah.
Anything else, though?
I'm done.
All right. Do you want to do your recommendations?
Sure.
Okay.
If you want a classic, like, almost grim fairy tale, not modern, what's the word I'm looking for? Grim fairy tale, Salem witch trial-esque witch film,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Like, this is very much a classic film about witches.
Yeah.
In the storytelling sense. So if that's something you're interested in, highly recommend it for that. If you want a, like, history piece about the 1600s and, like, what it's like to live on a shitty homestead in the middle of nowhere, also recommend it for that. All the set stuff is really cool. All of the, like, actual dangers they face that aren't, crazy witch stuff are really cool. If you want a film about religion and a family struggle with it, this movie does such a good job at that. And I really, really like it. If you want a movie about family and what can make it fall apart very easily,
Yeah.
I highly recommend it for that. I have a lot of more recommendations, but I'm going to stop now.
Okay. I think I have 3 big recommendations here. I mean, first of all, if you like horror films and you want a somber period piece, this is amazing. It's, for me at least, probably the best period piece from this from this time period that I can point at. If I want anything from like 1600s puritanical,
Yeah.
this is probably it for me. I know it's obviously a horror film and it has some more fantastic elements, but they really do capture, I think, some of the facts of life very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
And very, very visually appealing as well. Additionally, I think if you are looking for something that kind of captures the whole, again, I'm going to use their own words, New England folktale kind of aesthetic, it's almost folk horror, but it's very much rooted in kind of early America or early colonial America. I think this is a very good film for that.
For sure.
And then finally, if you like any of the people associated with it,
Yeah.
I mean, this is the director's feature-length directorial debut. It's also the first movie for Anya Taylor-Joy, I believe her name is.
No, you got her name right.
So, if you like any of the people in this film, I think they all do a great job with it. And it's definitely worth a watch for that. But that being said, though, do you want to give it a rating?
Oof. Okay. I don't know how I feel about this one. Because, yeah, I like it. I think it's super good. I don't know if I can give it a 5. We've been slinging them around this season.
You've been slinging them around.
But also, here's my point. This, like I said, is very much a film that is a classic, like, witch folktale film.
Yeah.
And it does everything I want.
I was going to say, why do you think you can't give it a 5?
Because there was no, it's so hard for me to say it. I wasn't blown away. There was nothing super surprising that, like, blew me out of the water. But I think that's because I kind of knew how the movie ended before we watched it.
Was that spoilers or?
You've talked about it before.
Oh, have I?
Yes,
Okay.
to me specifically. So I knew what was going to happen.
Oh, that was probably before the podcast, wasn't it?
Yes, it absolutely was.
Sorry.
So I'm sort of sitting here like, if I had never seen that, didn't know all the stuff I knew, and watched this for the first time, I'd be fucking gobsmacked right now.
Yeah.
And the movie's still fantastic. And also, I said I had a problem with the movie. We talked over it. Don't even care. The black stuff. I was like, I don't like that.
Okay.
It's weird. But then you explained it to me, and I was like, no, that makes sense, and I appreciate it more now. So I've kind of gotten over the only problem I had with the movie. So I think I'm gonna give it a 5.
Okay.
This is, dare I say it, the perfect, like, witch folktale film. Like, that I can't think of wanting anything else from a movie like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it's the perfect witch folk horror film, but definitely for, like, what we view of 1600s witches.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's, basically.
Because it also takes a lot of the predisposed notions that I have about what I want from a film like this, and throws them out the window by getting rid of the whole witch trial element that you would kind of
That's what you expect,
think of.
right?
Exactly. And it doesn't do that. And that's incredible and refreshing. So, yeah, 5. I like this movie a lot.
I'm also going to give it a 5 because, in all honesty, I don't really have any issues with this film. It's kind of just one of those movies where I'm like, wow, this was really, really good, and I really, really enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
Even on a subsequent watch, I was having a great time, which I think is always a good sign for a movie when you can watch it again and just still be blown out of the water.
Yeah.
But really, I think the thing that gets it there to a 5 is the combination of all the technical stuff, how much attention to detail there is on the sets, the dialogue, but also the sound design, the cinematography, but also how they managed to work in a lot of good reflections on the time period and beliefs and witches into the script. I think just overall, it's a film that just perfectly captures the beliefs of the time period and place alongside the fear of the unknown and witches as a almost primal force of evil.
Ooh.
I think it's really good, and it serves a 5.
No, yeah. I agree with you.
That being said, though, I think we're going to go to outtakes. I don't necessarily think we're going to have any.
You don't think so?
We marked a couple stuff, but a lot of them were just Bob gasping. But we might have one. So we'll see in a second.
There's at least one funny one.
We'll be back then.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in a minute. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the outtake section for this episode of Beware the Board. I hope you're enjoying our review of The Witch so far. I really like this movie. I think it's super fantastic. But without further ado, let's get into the outtakes. This first clip is the beginning of the movie starting to freak me out.
You can also see why the forest was important.
Yeah. Why was that necessary? I didn't like that.
I know you didn't. I don't think you're going to like that a lot.
That's crazy. We've literally nothing has happened, and I'm terrified. This next clip is my reaction to one of the witch's disgusting rituals. No. Oh, God. No. Oh. Thank God. Ugh. At least I didn't get to see the baby murder, but now I gotta look at this witch's bare ass. Ugh. I hate this. Oh, she covering herself in mushed up baby? Ugh. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the outtakes. Do we have any announcements, Ben?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
So, usual stick. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcast. We're lots of places now. We're also on YouTube, which, while not the best place for a podcast, because, it's a video platform, and there's no video for this audio, it is kind of nice to show us some support. It's always really cool to see how, your likes on videos, but also your subscriptions. It's how we get to be like, oh, there's this many people watching to our dumb little show. Aside from that, if you're on YouTube, there's a bunch of other kind of cool tools on there. There is a search bar, which allows you to search keywords on all our episodes. So if you're looking for a movie we covered, you can search the name of that movie, and it might come up if we've done it. But the other big thing with YouTube is it's one of the 2 main places to communicate with us at. You can do that in the comment section of a specific video, or you can go over to Twitter, or X, I guess, at Beware the Board, and go to Bob. Maybe pray that he blesses you with his presence.
Oh, God. Okay. I thought that one was going to get weird, but we're okay. Like Ben said, check us out on Twitter at Beware the Board. It's where we post updates about the show, information about the show. Basically, if there's anything you don't know about the show, it goes on our Twitter. On Mondays, I post a spoiler post for that Friday's episode, which is a hidden movie cover that you can reveal, so you can watch the movie before we do. So whenever you listen to episodes, you don't get any spoilers, and we're being vague about stuff, you kind of know what we're talking about. Then, on Fridays, or whatever day an episode goes live, I always post a link to the episode with maybe a meme. So if you ever miss an upload or want to know something went up, there's always a link on our Twitter. Last thing, we do short form content over on TikTok at Beware the Board and on YouTube Shorts. So if you're into short form content and like the show, check us out there at Beware the Board on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts. I think that's it, Ben.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.